Hey everyone, welcome back to another cycling video. So today I thought I'd make a video on top 5 cycling tips I wish I knew before I started cycling. I could probably go on to maybe even 20 for this. But yeah, I just thought I'd give you 5 for now, and then maybe down the line I can make another 5. You know, just kind of do it like that. So these are in no particular order. I've just written down a few notes and a few bullet points. So I just want to get those bullet points across. Number 1, keep your drivetrain and, well, let's say bike clean. This is something that I definitely haven't always done. There's times where I've rode thousands of kilometers and probably haven't even oiled the chain, or at least even if I've oiled it, I haven't necessarily cleaned it. Same with the brake pads as well, especially if you're going to be riding in bad rainy conditions. So basically the drivetrain, obviously, as you know, on a bike is exposed. So even if you're riding in the dry, it's inevitable that you're going to pick up little bits of grit, sand, dust, debris, you know, stones, things like that. And they, even if you're using the best cycling lube that exists in the whole world, you're gonna pick up bits of crap, right? And then anything you pick up on your chain is gonna spin around, and it's going to grind against all of the other components. Now, obviously, the longer this goes on, the more component wear there's going to get. Now, a chain, obviously chains, especially with 11 speed now, can be at least $30 or so. So you don't want to have to replace a chain too often. But I would say, worst of all, the chain wearing and spinning around, it's going to wear your chain, it's going to wear your cranksets, and it's going to wear your cassettes. So all of the cogs, and then you're going to have problems with like weird shifting, and ghost shifting as well. So you'll be kind of like riding along, or you'll try and put some power down and it will just suddenly skip out of gear, and that's the last thing you want, especially if you're standing up off the saddle. And then of course it's just going to be like unsmooth, and then worst of all as well, it's going to wear the chain even more. So the more, it's kind of like a vicious circle. So it's like you get because you're not cleaning the chain, you then end up wearing, let's say the cassette, which will then end up wearing the chain more, which will then wear the crankset, right, at the front. So it's a vicious cycle. So here's what I do. I only ride in the dry. Now, some of you may not have that option. Some of you may not have Zwift. Some of you may specifically ride to work every day, which is really cool. You know, I definitely agree with that. So if you're commuting and, you know, you're not, especially if you live in somewhere like England, where you're not going to say, oh, every time it's raining, I'm going to drive in the car. That might be 5 days a week somewhere like England, right? Or you know, somewhere else rainy, let's say. Let's just not target England, only in my experience at least. So then, yeah, you may think, right, okay, what am I going to do in that case? So here's what I would recommend. In that scenario, rinse your bike off as soon as you get home. So, oh no, I've got caught in the rain, rode home, rinse your bike off just with a hose, and then maybe just give it a quick wipe, and then re-oil. You don't need to fully degrease it every single ride, just get the bulk off. So yeah, if you're riding in the rain, otherwise if you leave it on, it's just gonna, it's gonna have that gritty sound, and it's just gonna wear it like crazy. But if you're just driving in, if you're just riding around in the dry like me, then yeah, just consider maybe midweek. I mean, if you're not doing too much kilometers, midweek, give it like give the whole drivetrain like a kind of wipe, like a really thorough wipe. Get those jockey wheels, make sure that they don't have any crud on, and just kind of, yeah, just give it like a really good wipe, and then re-oil it again. I use dry lube, Muck Off dry lube. I'm not sponsored or anything like that, but I've used this all the time, and I just find it's very, very clean and very, very easy to use. So yeah, and then I put well, let's say roughly 1 per link on the top and then 1 per link on the inside, so it's like basically 2. I use the quick release quick chain link, is it called? The quick chain link as a reference. So I put the quick chain link there, and then I'll basically put it on every loop, and then I'll do the same from the top and then on the inside. So that's what I do. So yeah, don't if you don't want to have to keep buying a new cassette every 3 months or every 2 months or whatever, then yeah, definitely consider looking after your drivetrain. Ever since I've done it, I've noticed just I'm not even wearing cassettes, chains or anything like that out anymore. And then at the end of the week, I give it a thorough clean and degrease. I posted some pictures on my Instagram the other day, where I basically get the chain cleaning tool. It's like a blue thing, and you kind of fill it full of degreaser, and then you hook the chain on it, and then you basically back pedal it, and then it gives it a really good clean. And then I go over with, obviously rinse it all off with the hose and whatever. I then go off with the cog. What am I trying to say? I then go over with a rag and then clean all the cogs. And yeah, I then spray WD-40 into a clean rag and then spin it through that, just to maybe get rid of any rust or really like penetrate through. And then once it's all dried and whatever, I will then reapply the lube, so that gives it a really good clean as well. It's very hot and humid out here. I'm in kind of like is it gazebo? It's like a shelter thing, so that's why I may look like a strange color as well. Yeah, so that's what I do. Also the brakes as well. If you're running disc, you want to clean them even more often, but if you're running brake pads, rim brake, as I'm running rim brake, just check that there's no like Sharpies or anything like that stuck on the brakes, otherwise they'll wear down your rims, especially if you're on carbon rims. Number 2, this is something I've definitely found the hard way. Always use, if you're going to go, let's say it's more than like a 5k ride or 10 minutes, let's say, if it's more than that, wear bike shorts, and use some kind of chamois cream. So I actually made my own using shea butter, olive oil, some kind of candelilla wax or some kind of wax, and then I used mint and eucalyptus, so it's like cooling as well. So I just make a big pot of that whenever it runs out. Basically I just throw it all into a double boiler system on the stove. If you're interested, just let me know in the comments down below, and I'll actually make that video if you want a cheap, easy to make chamois cream. I think I'm saying it right. So yeah, always do that, otherwise you're going to suffer with some nasty saddle sores. I'm not saying you won't get saddle sores, but you'll definitely be less likely to get them because there won't be as much friction. So that's number 2. Number 3, this is something that, well, I guess I found out the hard way over time. Never ride in the gutter. So you'll probably see a lot of cyclists, and it almost seems to be like kind of invisibly enforced that cyclists should ride in the gutter. You should ride here, so then the car can still fit in the lane. No, that isn't part of any highway code or any road rules or anything. You're not forced to ride in the gutter. You don't have to put yourself in danger like that, right? So I'll tell you what, right? If you're in a position on a road, just take the central position. Like, this is what I always do. And sometimes I even not instinctively, but sometimes I kind of move over, just, I don't know, because I'm not paying attention or whatever, right? And then I notice as soon as you allow, even if it's like the tiniest little bit beyond the center, like to the gutter, right, the car will overtake you within the lines. The car will be like, oh, there's just enough room for me there, I'm gonna pass. And then you'll have cars like almost skimming your shoulder as they go by. That's not safe for you, that's not safe for them, that's not safe for the people behind, that's not safe for anyone, right? Especially if there's multiple lanes, just drive in the center, drive beyond the center, right? And then you'll notice as soon as you move over, cars will use the other lane to overtake you, right? Cars will use the other lane, they'll give you the full width, right? With all the social distancing and stuff going on, you'd think people will be used to it now, like 2 meters. you have the right to ride on the road and take up the lane, and you also have the right to be overtaken safely. You shouldn't do anything that puts your life in danger. So take up that whole lane, and it will, trust me, be safer for you and the other cars, because they won't try and fit through a gap that either is or isn't there, or is only just there, and brush past your shoulder on the way by. And if you wobble, like you might, because you have to think of it as well, the car just thinks you're driving in a straight line, but they don't think, oh, there's a little pothole there, he's going to move to the left, you know, or to the right, or whichever side you're riding on, right? They don't think about that. They just think, yeah, there's just enough room for me to get through the lines, and that's perfect. So then they start overtaking you, and you're perhaps not even aware. You're perhaps in the zone. You're perhaps training. You perhaps don't even want to have to think about, like, oh, a car's passing me by. So you might just instinctively just, oh, it's a pothole, and just move over to one way, and then suddenly there's a car smashing past you. So yeah, drive in the middle, ride in the middle, whatever. And you'll notice straight away cars are overtaking you, and as soon as you move beyond that middle to the gutter, whichever way it is, for me now, I ride on the right because I'm in Canada. Cars will overtake you properly. They'll overtake you with a huge distance. But like I said, if you start riding in the gutter, they're going to say, yep, there's just enough room in that line, which also brings me to another thing as well. The gutter is full, fucking flies, excuse my French, the gutter is full of Sharpies as well. Typically the gutter, the cars drive through, and they have a special tread on the tires, cars do, so they basically displace gravel, dirt, rubbish, glass, etc., and they displace it basically to the gutter. And all the roads have a camber as well, so when it rains, all of the gravel, the dirt, the crap, the glass, the sharp pieces, the nails, they all fall into the gutter. And if you're riding in the gutter, you're gonna have a really bad time with constantly getting punctures. And as soon as you move into the center of the road where you're supposed to be riding, you're not gonna I'm not saying you're never gonna get a puncture, because obviously you can go through a pothole, or there could be a freshly dropped nail or a freshly dropped piece of glass, in the middle, but it's going to lessen your chances. Thank me later. Okay, so I can't do that with my hands. So number 4, right? So don't overdo it, right? So many people either have the kind of mindset where it's like, oh, if I'm not training, I'm not gaining, or I just made that up. I don't know if that's a thing. So some people might have the mindset of like, oh, if I don't train, I can't gain. Wrong. It's actually when you rest and when you recover that you're making the gain. So if on a Monday you do a threshold session like I've just done, or you do a VO2 max session or whatever, although you may think, yes, of course, that session is helping you gain, but you don't gain immediately from that session. You gain during the recovery. So if I'm tomorrow going to do another threshold session, I might not gain because I haven't recovered. So it's actually during the recovery, and the recovery is just as important as the actual training itself. And then of course that leads me to talking about overdoing it. It's so easy to overdo it in cycling. You've just started cycling. It's fun. The sun's out. My friends invited me out on a 6-hour ride, and then you do that, and you think, oh, that's good. That's it for the week. And then, oh, Bill across the road, he's invited me out. With the lads, we're gonna do another 3-hour ride, and we're gonna grab a beer, and oh, the sun's out. We best make the most of it, kind of thing. Well, that's all well and good, but are you prepared for those kind of hours? And then what's going to happen next week? Are you going to go easy next week, or are you just going to continue? So you'll see, that's typical. You'll see a lot of people doing kind of like wind down weeks, and you'll see the peak. So they might do 10 hours, 12, 14, 16, etc., and then kind of wind back down a little bit, and then eventually work up to 18, and then wind back down a bit, and then work up to 20, and then wind back down a bit. So that's one way of doing it. Another week is just a steady increase, and then just kind of maintain. and then kind of come back down. So there's many ways of doing it, but just know the signs. You know, if you've trained 20 hours last week and then middle of the next week you can't put any watts out, then you're not going to improve. You know, if your threshold session you should be putting out 260 watts and you can only put out 220, well, that's zone 3, that's not threshold. Even though it feels hard, like it might feel like threshold, it's not. So you're not going to make any gains. So essentially you're only going to make gains if you can push the boundaries. So if you train so much that you're not able to make gains, then you're not going to make gains, right? So yeah, so just know when to recover. And I would say number 5, use some kind of training tools. So this is, luckily for me, this is something that I did straight away, but I know a lot of newbies just get on the bike and go. Now that's fine, but I would definitely say it's going to aid you as a training tool. So even just a simple app on your phone and Bluetooth heart rate monitor or whatever. Personally, I definitely recommend a power meter. I currently have the 4i power meter. It's just as good as the Stages in my opinion, a lot cheaper. I haven't had any issues yet. If you're interested in a full review, let me know in the comments. But yeah, definitely some kind of training metric so you can see, you know, how your body's responding and how you're doing, right? So it might be that you you know, you want to do, you want to get fitter, right? So if you haven't got any metrics, how are you going to get fitter? Like you don't know. You can't go by average speed. You can't say, oh well, I went on this road at 27 kilometers an hour average for 2 minutes and the next day I did 28. Well, there might be a headwind, there might have been less traffic, there might have been less gravel on the road, right? So essentially something like power, something like heart rate, you can know what you're doing. So you can train, you can set your zones, and you can go out and do a zone 2, you can go out and do a zone 5, you know, all those kind of things, and you can train properly. And then the best thing with power as well is, I personally recommend power, is it doesn't matter what conditions. So it doesn't matter if you're going uphill, it doesn't matter if you're going downhill, doesn't matter if there's a wind, doesn't matter if you're on gravel, power is power, right? So 250 watts, uphill, downhill, on the flat, with a headwind, with a tailwind, it's still 250 watts. Heart rate, on the other hand, you know, you can suddenly be going up a hill and, oh no, my heart rate's 170, and oh, I'm only going 10 kilometers an hour. Whereas before I was on the flat and my heart rate was 120 and I was going 25 kilometers an hour. So yeah, so heart rate isn't a good metric, but heart rate tells you what your body's doing. So at least you've got that. And then, like I said, power's undisputed. So definitely, if you know, if you're planning on, at least start with heart rate. If you don't want to invest in a power meter, even though you can get a power meter for $300 now, I'm not saying that's nothing, but you know, it's cheap compared to what it was. I remember when I was first looking at power meters, they were £500, which I was like, wow, I paid £650 for my first bike, Specialized, what was it, Specialized Sector Triple, back in 2014. So yeah, definitely consider getting something where you can actually train. Like I said, if you're just using a phone app, like I made a video about Cyclemeter. Cyclemeter could be a great app, or Strava even. Strava's free, and then you can just get a Bluetooth heart rate monitor, and then at least you can ride along and say, yes, I'm in zone 2, or my heart rate's 130 beats per minute, or whatever. So you know what you're doing, and then suddenly, you know, oh, my heart rate's gone up to 170. That's why I'm breathing so heavy, because it's 170. And then you can look at it and be like, well, I'm not breathing much, I can still talk, and oh, my heart rate's only 120. So you can make that connection, and then you can kind of roughly work out your training zones. And you know, you can think, oh, if I want to go for a 5-hour ride, I best not really go above 140, you know, because then I can go an all-day pace. So yeah, definitely recommend that for any new cyclist. Like I said, you can get a power meter for $300 now. You can get a heart rate monitor for $30 off Amazon, and you've all pretty much got a phone. So let's say you can get an app for free, Strava, you know, or you get a simple app like Map My Ride, Komoot, things like that, right? So those are my tips. Let me know if you've got any more tips in the comment section below. Give this video a like if you liked it, or a dislike if you dislike it. Either one helps. And subscribe if you want to see more cycling videos like this. And yeah, I'll try and help you all as much as I can with my cycling knowledge. If you have anything to add, or if you think that I was wrong in any way of what I've said, it's just my opinion. I'm not an expert, but I feel like I have, you know, some experience that I can share with you. Let me know in the comment section below. And yeah, see you in the next video, everyone.